So this is the app we'll be building today, and as you can see, it is running on my car. I've hooked up a lot of these members to show an alert that you can easily override with your own functionality, and I've implemented 5 different templates where the tab bar is the root template. You've seen the grid and list templates now, and this is the point of interest template. I mean, any app just looks way cooler if it has a map on it. I think we can all agree on that. So as you tap on these members, the icon enlarges in the map and you get some context info. And lastly, we have an information template with also some action buttons there that you can use to display information to a user. There are more templates available, but I figured these ones would provide you with the basic building blocks to get started and understand how .NET MAUI works with Apple CarPlay. So let's get started. So there are 2 important sets of documentation that we're going to be working from. The first is the CarPlay Apple developer documentation, which I will also link in the description below, but you'll just also be able to find it by Googling CarPlay developer documentation, and it's quite extensive. It has quite a few categories that it covers, just takes you through all the various sections of developing a CarPlay app. So that's what a lot of this video is based on. And then there's also a PDF document that Apple provides called CarPlay App Programming Guide, which I will also link in the description below. And this is basically what we're going to be following from start to end. So the first thing that they mention here is getting your CarPlay app entitlement. And this is probably one of the most difficult parts about the entire process and can create a bit of a delay. So you need to request an entitlement from Apple before you'll be able to even run this in the simulator. To request an entitlement, you can just go to this article on the CarPlay developer docs, which I'll also link in the description. And then if you click on this CarPlay Contact Us button, they provide you with a form that you need to fill in, where you have to provide a name, email, organization, what app type you want to create. So there's a couple of different options here. The one that I am demonstrating in this tutorial is going to be a driving task, and you have to give a brief description of your app and then tell them what specific CarPlay features do you plan to implement. And then you can also provide an App Store URL if it's already an app in production. So when it comes to the app type, you have quite a couple of options, and they explain them in a bit more detail in that PDF document that I showed you earlier, which if you just scroll down a bit, you will find an entire description of the various types of apps and their minimum iOS supported version. So that's also something to take into consideration here, that users with older iOS versions won't be able to launch your CarPlay app if you have, for example, a driving task app which requires iOS 16. But fortunately, Apple do update the older phones as well. So that helps at least. And also this doesn't limit your current user base only using the app on their phone. They just won't be able to see the app pop up on their CarPlay system if they don't have iOS 16. But if they have, for example, iOS 14, you'll still be able to run the mobile app. So just something to take into consideration. All right, I've jumped over to my Mac and let's set up our environment to develop for CarPlay. So the first thing that you will need is the latest Visual Studio for Mac. So I'll just also add the link in the description below. And then you'll also need additional tools for Xcode, which contains the CarPlay simulator. So I'll also add the link in the description below, but if you just Google it, you'll land on this page. and you'll see there's an additional tools page here. Once you tap on that, you'll have to sign in. I've already signed in, so it's not going to ask me again. So if you just scroll down, you'll see there's a couple of different versions. We're looking for the latest stable release. So this is still a release candidate. That's a beta version. If we just go down a bit, here we go. This looks like the latest one currently. Additional tools for Xcode 14.2. So you can just say view details, and then you can click on the download. Once the download is done, this is basically this .dmg if you're not familiar with it. It's basically a disk image file. So it mounts a drive. Then if you open it up, this window will pop up, and we want to go to the hardware folder, and there we have it. There's the CarPlay simulator. So you can just copy this to a location that's more convenient for you. I've just added it to my launchpad so that I can always launch it quickly from there. Connect your iPhone to your Mac. It might present you with an alert when you launch the CarPlay simulator that you need to accept first. But if all goes well, it should launch into CarPlay and you should see all your CarPlay apps. Well done, you've successfully set up your environment for CarPlay. Let's get started. Alright, so launch Visual Studio for Mac, and if you followed the Android Auto tutorial, you can just continue on that project. Otherwise, you can just create a new project if you're only interested in creating a CarPlay app. So I'm gonna hit new here just to show you that process. So on this dialog, we just want to go to multi-platform app and then select a .NET MAUI app, and let's continue. I'm going to select .NET 7 and continue. Let's just give our project a creative name. So I'm just going to call this MAUI Car App Demo, and then you can just hit create, and it should create our MAUI base app. Alright, now that we've created our project, the first thing that we need to do is go to Platforms, iOS, Info plist. We need to add a couple of things here to even be able to run the sample application. So at this point, I am assuming you have created your bundle ID and created the application on App Store Connect. So those are the first two steps. There are a lot of resources online on how to set that up. So I'm not going to go into all of that detail. So I'm first just going to add my bundle display name. That's a string, and I'm just going to call this MAUI Car App Demo. And then I am going to add my bundle identifier. And this is typically com dot and then your publisher name and dot your app name. And then I'm just going to add my bundle version here as well, which is just 1.0.0.1. And then also one last one is the bundle name, which is just going to be the same as the bundle display name. Alright, so that should work. Also, just go to properties and make sure your bundle signing identifier and provisioning profile is selected correctly, which should be related to your bundle identifier. If you can't find your provisioning profile you've set up, just go to Xcode and download the manual profiles from there. Alright, let's launch the application and just make sure the sample app is indeed running. And there we go. It is launched correctly, and if we tap on the click me button, the counter does increment. Alright, let's get started adding CarPlay to this MAUI app. Let's get started with adding the necessary items to our info plist for the CarPlay. If we have a look again at the CarPlay app programming guide and we go down to page 27, they provide us some information with what we need to specify in our info plist file. So I'm just going to copy this and then right click on my info plist and say open with Visual Studio Code. And then paste it right before the last closing dictionary tag. Paste it in here and you'll see the formatting is messed up. So I'm just quickly going to fix that. This part is broken up into two sections. The first one declares your iPhone's device scene delegate, and then the second one declares the CarPlay scene delegate. This is quite important, otherwise upon launch it won't know which class to redirect the system to display the correct delegate. So this is from the official Apple documentation, but the way that MAUI does it is slightly different. And if we have a look at the Microsoft docs, this is how they specify how you can provide multi-window support. And MAUI has something specific that they've added called MAUI default scene configuration. And this helps a lot because this used to be quite challenging to get right in Xamarin. So we just want to copy this UI scene configuration name and paste it into our UI scene configuration name, where phone is currently specified. And then also we can just specify the class that's going to be handling this scene delegate. So I'm just going to call this device scene delegate. And then on the CarPlay side, we need to replace the parts of my app with the actual app's name. So I'm just going to copy it from here. And then the second one, we just want to remove that completely. It gives us some issues if we actually specify the app's name there. So that's essentially it that you need to specify on your info plist for CarPlay. So make sure you save this, otherwise the changes won't reflect on Visual Studio. So if we reload this info plist in Visual Studio, you'll see we now have all of this information in here as well. Great. So let's get started with adding our device scene delegate class. This will be what the user will see when they launch the app from their phone. If you don't create this class, the app will just be a blank screen on your phone. So I'm just going to say new class and call this device scene delegate.cs. And we're going to need a using here called foundation. And you'll see that why in a second. So this device scene delegate needs to inherit from MAUI UI scene delegate. And this is the powerful part that we didn't have in Xamarin and had to jump through hoops to try and get that to work. And then we want to register this class with a specific name. So I've seen that MAUI and Xamarin sometimes assigns random GUID names for classes in the background if you don't specify an explicit name. So this is just so that info plist can find this class. And there we go. So if you don't have the foundation using, it won't know what this attribute means. So that is the device scene delegate. And next we can create our CarPlay scene delegate. But before we get to that, we need to add an entitlements.plist to add the driving task entitlement. So right click on the iOS folder and say new file, and this is an XML file that we need to add, and we're going to call it entitlements.plist and just hit create. And let's open this in VS Code as well. So if you go to the Microsoft documentation, the iOS entitlements documentation, they provide you with how an entitlements.plist file should be set up. So you just paste that in here and make sure you save this file. And then if we reload this entitlements.plist, Visual Studio now knows what this is. The entitlement we want to add is the driving task app. So if we just quickly go back to the car app programming guide and just go back to the different types of car apps, and we want to be adding this developer Apple driving task. So we want to add a new entry here, and then in here just paste that entitlement. The types should be a boolean and the value should be yes. Great. Now that we've added our entitlement, you also want to go right click on your project, say go to properties, under bundle signing, make sure you navigate here to your entitlements.plist file so that it knows where to find the file. Alright, great. Let's create our CarPlaySceneDelegate class. So right click, new class, CarPlaySceneDelegate.cs, and hit create. So we need to add a using for CarPlay. So just type using CarPlay, and then you will be able to inherit from CP template application scene delegate. Again, this is from the Apple docs, and we want to add a register for this class as well. So add the using for foundation and then register, and just throw in the class's name in there. Okay, great. So if you have a look at the CarPlay programming guide again, and you go to the actual code that they give you, there are two classes that we need to override for this to work: the didConnect and the didDisconnect classes. This code is in Swift, but we're just going to translate that to C#. So go in here, start typing override and didConnect, and we want to choose the first option here. We don't need the CP window, and just let the autocomplete finish that for you. And the same thing with the didDisconnect class. Select the first one of the two. Now, what we need from this is specifically is the interface controller. So let's create a private member to keep context of that member. And then in the didConnect class, we just want to assign it. And in the didDisconnect, we want to dispose it. Okay, great. We're making really good progress, but if you try and launch the app at this point, it will crash because we're not setting a root template yet. In our constructor, we want to create our first root template, so which is going to be a tabbar template. So let's create a private CP tabbar template. This is going to contain all our other templates and display them in a tab layout. So let's just call this tabbar template, and just going to say new CP tabbar template in our constructor. It has a couple of overrides. You usually don't want to use the NSCoder one. That's usually the other one. So it's the CP template array that we want to create here. New CP template array. And this is going to contain our other templates. And then in our didConnect, we want to set this as our root template. So interface controller dot set root template. All right, then just specify the tabbar template there, and as the second parameter, Should it be animated? Yes, because it looks prettier. And there you have it. But we still need to specify a template inside our tab bar template. So let's create a empty grid template. So cp grid template. Just going to new up it here as well. And this is expecting a title and some grid buttons. So the title is just going to be Hello World, since at this point this is our Hello World message, and then also just an empty grid button array. You would expect Hello World to display, but if you don't set a tab image, it won't show. So you have to also specify a tab image, and we are going to use the SF icons from Apple that's included when you create a iOS MAUI project. If you go to this website, hotpot.ai free SF icons, and you filter by SF icons, I'll also provide the link in the description below. It gives you the entire list of SF icons that you can use. And we are looking for something that looks like a grid. So let's just type in grid, and then let's just choose this one. Once you click on it, it will copy the name for you. So we can go back to Visual Studio and say uikit.uiimage.getSystemImage, and it's expecting a string, so we can just paste our image in there. Great, this is looking good, and then we can just specify our grid template inside the list of CP templates for the tab bar template. Now you'll notice there's quite a lot of warnings going on here. It's telling you that some of this code is reachable for Mac Catalyst and some other things, but this is actually a non-issue because it won't even show up on CarPlay if you're not on the right iOS version. So, but to get rid of some of these issues, we can just add a using system.runtime.versioning. And then we can add some attributes. So just say supported OS platform is iOS 16.0. And this needs to be in quotes because it's a string. And we have unsupported OS platform, which is Mac OS. Another unsupported, so I'm just going to copy this, which is Mac Catalyst. And that got rid of some of the warnings that we saw. But some of them will still remain, but you can safely ignore these ones. Alright, let's run this and see what it looks like. Remember to unlock your iPhone and launch your CarPlay simulator. And there we go. It looks like the app popped up on CarPlay. Let's see if we tap on it. And there we go. Hello world. Fantastic. That is very exciting. I hope you're as excited as I was the first time I saw this working on CarPlay. But well done. You've come a long way, and I think you can pat yourself on the back for getting this far already. But let's extend this application a bit further and add some content to our template. Alright, so let's start populating our grid template with grid buttons. So let's create a private method to build our grid template, and it's going to be returning a CP grid template. And we want to save this variable, and then we can move all of this out of the constructor. And we want to return this. And in the constructor, we want to use this private method to build that. So our grid template is looking for some grid buttons in an array, but I'm rather going to be using a list since I can then dynamically add them. So let's create a list of CP grid buttons called grid buttons, and say new list of CP grid button. And then in a for loop, I'm going to assign them. I'm not going to use a for each so that I have access to the index, and I'm going to add 8 of these. So just going to go through them and say grid buttons dot add, just a new CP grid button. And if we have a look at the overload, the first thing that it needs is title variants. So title variants is essentially a list of strings of varying lengths. So depending on the screen space available, CarPlay will decide which string to display. But I am just going to specify one. So a new string array, and just going to say grid item. And let's just add that $sign and say I+1 since we're starting at 0. Then the next thing it's looking for is a UI image. So I want to display from our shared projects resources the .NET bot SVG here. So to do that, I can just say UIKit.UIImage.FromBundle and then specify a string here for the name without the file extension. So just say .NET_bot, and that should add our image. And then the last thing it's expecting is a handler that should be called when the button is pressed. But for now, I'm just going to leave that blank. So it's going to say action. It's expecting an action parameter and just use an empty lambda for now. And there we go. So we've added our 8 grid buttons now. And then we can just add them here to the CP grid template. All right, it's throwing an error because it's expecting an array. So just say .toArray, and that should go away. Great, let's quickly run this and just see what it looks like. All right, there we go. So we have our grid items here. Currently, they don't do anything if we tap on them, but we'll later add that handler. So let's add our other 3 templates, the list template, the point of interest template, and the information template. Okay, before we create our list templates, let's just rename this grid template title to grid template so that we can identify them easier. And then let's create a private CP list template and then add that to our tabbar template. And in here we are going to, in the constructor, we are going to build it. So let's just create another private method for that, CP list template. This is going to be build list template. And so we want to have a var list template equals new CP list template. And if we look at its constructor, it is looking for a title and some sections. So the title, I'm just going to say list template, and then we can create some sections for it. But before we get to that, let's just also add its icon, its tab image. So again, UIKit.UIImage.getSystemImage, and this time I'm going to use the list.dash icon from the SF symbols library. And we want to return this list template. We can now build up the sections. So it is expecting an array of CP list sections. So let's just say var list sections equals new CP list section. So I'm just gonna create an array here, and inside it, I'm just going to say new CP list section, And let's see what this needs. So it needs some ICP list template items, a header text, and a section index title. So we are going to create the list items, but first let's just add the header strings along. So this is going to be section 1, and it's section index title. I'm just going to make section 1 index title, and let's just copy that and create another section. So basically this list is going to be broken up into 2 sections, as you saw in the demo at the start. So this is expecting items that implements an interface of ICP list template item. So section 1 items, section list items 1 equals new list of these guys, and also the same thing for our second section. Then again, I'm just going to build this in a for loop. So var I equals 0. Again, not using for each, so that I have the index parameter. Let's just create our list buttons here. So the CP list item implements that interface. So we can add that to this list. And what it is expecting is some text. Let's just say list item I plus 1, because we're starting from 0. And then it's looking for some detail text. And I'm just going to say for the detail text, section 1 list item. And then lastly, we can also specify a image for this list item. So again, I'm just going to use that dotnet bot that we used in our grid template. Just going to copy it from here, paste it in here, just add the semicolon. Then we just need to add the list button to our actual list. Say .add and throw in that list button there. We can do the same thing for the second section, just updating it so it's referencing the second section's items, and then we can pass through these lists to the list sections. And again, this needs to be an array, so just say .toArray, and the same thing for the second one. And then finally, we can pass through the list sections to the list template. So it's quite a mouthful, but I think it does make sense if you go through it slowly. And we assign this. There we go. All right, let's see what that looks like. And there we go. We can see our list template arrived there. The first section is over here, and the second section, with each with their own 4 items. Currently, if you tap on them, some loading spinner will kick off and the app might crash because we have not implemented anything to handle the on-tap handlers. And if you look at the code, there's no constructor that allows us to provide a handler. But you can provide a handler by saying list button, this should not be plural, list button dot handler, and then you can specify a handler. But we'll get to that after we've created all the templates, and there you can see the exception happening. Okay, now we can implement the point of interest template. So this is where it starts getting interesting. So let's create a private CP point of interest template. Let's say POI template. And then let's add that one as the third template in our tab bar template. And here we are going to assign it in our constructor. So let's again create a private method to build that template. Going to be a CP point of interest template. Let's just call this build POI template. All right. So let's say var POI template equals new CP point of interest template, and let's see what it's looking for. It's looking for a title, some points of interest, and a selected index. So the title, I'm just going to call it POI template. Then The points of interest we are going to specify still, and then the selected index is an integer that keeps track of the selected index. So I'm just gonna create a private to keep track of that. Selected POI, and then we can provide that guy over there. So the point of interest template basically provides you with a map and some points of interest. So we're going to say var points of interest and start building up that list. So it's a new list CP point of interest, and then we can start creating that. Actually, this doesn't need to be a list because we're not building it, not going to build it dynamically. So let's just make this an array. Okay, so new CP point of interest, and let's see what it's looking for. So it's looking for quite a lot. So the first thing it's looking for is a location. Create that new mapkit.mk map item, and then this in turn is looking for a mapkit.mk placemark. And then this is looking for a core location.cl location coordinate 2D. And then we finally have our latitude and longitude coordinates that we can provide. So let's go to Google Maps and find a location to plot. So there is this place in Nigeria called Subscribe Now. So I'm going to be using this, which is in no way supposed to be a subliminal message. But in all seriousness, if you are enjoying these videos, please feel free to subscribe. So if you right click on a place in Google Maps, a little menu appears and you can just click on the GPS coordinates right on the top of the menu. And then just paste it into where we need to provide the coordinates, and it's already comma separated, so that's nice. So next thing we need to specify is a title for the point of interest. So I'm just going to call that Subscribe Now, and the subtitle is for more great tutorials. I get this feeling this place in Nigeria is suddenly going to get a lot of internet traffic and they're going to wonder where this is coming from. And for the summary, I'm just going to say hit the like if useful. So it's a lot of info. So all of these top 3 ones are on the upper page, and then once you've hit the detail context view, these are on the next one, the detail title and subtitle and summary. So then I'm just going to say thank you, and I hope you find the videos helpful. And then finally a detail summary, we can just say many more tutorials coming. Wow, okay, last thing we need to specify is our pin image. I'm going to use a system image, uikit.uiimage.getSystemImage, and just going to use the video icon from the SF icons library. And then I think we're still looking for a closing bracket. Yes, there we go. So we have our first point of interest, and we can now specify these points of interest in this list, and then also return our POI template and use this method to build our point of interest templates in our constructor. But let's just add 2 more points of interest to make it a little bit more interesting. Let's just search for another place nearby on our Google Maps in Nigeria. So next I am going to add, maybe there's a school or something close by. There's a high school. So right click on that, copy the coordinates, paste the coordinates in here. And this is just gonna be school. I'm gonna leave the other text as is, don't worry. And then this one, I'm just gonna use the book icon. And let's just add 1 more point of interest. Let's see if we can find a shop. Change the name to shop. And Let's just have a quick look here. There's a market, it seems. Can use this one. There we go. And then just paste that in here. And this time I'm going to use the cart icon for that. Alright, let's launch this and see what it looks like. And we never specified the icon for the tab, so that always defaults the title to more and 3 dots. So we just need to fix that, but our point of interest template is working and we can see our map with our 3 points of interest. And just as we set it up, if you hit the subscribe now, then it says thank you. I hope you find the videos helpful. Many more tutorials coming. So, and as you tap on the others, they enlarge on the map, their icons, and the same text is displayed because we didn't change the text for those ones. Okay, great. One more template to go, and then we can add the action handlers. Okay, before we get started with the information template, let's just add that icon to our point of interest template so that it displays the right title and icon the next time we run it. So just say tab image equals UI kit dot UI image dot get system image, and we're going to use the pin icon to symbolize our point of interest template. Okay, let's add our information template, the last template on this application. So it's going to be CP information template. There's a lot of other templates available. I just chose these 5 with the tab template included. So you can go and explore what else is available. So it's info template, and that equals, and we're going to build our template there, and we're going to add it to our tab bar template as our 4th one. And let's just create a private method to build that template. So it's going to return a CP information template, build info template, and then we're just going to say var info template equals new CP information template. And let's have a look what we have available here. So we have to specify a title again, so it's going to say info template. Then we can specify a layout. We have the options between leading and 2 column. So that's just each item will either be above each other or next to each other, the title and the information. So I'm just going to use 2 columns so you can see what that looks like. Then we have to build up our CP information item array. And then lastly, we can specify some actions. I'm just going to leave these actions blank for now. So it's also just going to be CP text button, an empty array of this for now. And before we forget, let's add our tab image as well. So this time it's going to use UI kit dot UI image dot get system image, and this time I'm going to use the info dot circle dot fill icon, and then we can just return this info template, and we can use this in our constructor to build our info template. Accidentally auto completed something wrong. There we go. Much better. Alright, so let's just build up our information items. We're just going to say var info items equals new CP information item array. And then we can just create them here. So new CP information item. And then let's have a look what we have. Title and detail. So it's just going to say hi there, and for the detail I'm going to say here is your detail message. And let's just add a couple more of these. So say for example you have a grocery list app. I'm just going to make this title groceries, and these are the groceries you need to remember to buy when you go to the store. So it's going to be milk, some bread, and some sugar. And then we can just add these info items to our information template. Great, let's run this and see what it looks like. Alright, launching the app, we can see our point of interest, template, title, and icon is now displayed correctly. And then on our info template, we can see the 2-column layout that we set up, and we have our groceries that we need to remember. Awesome. So we have our 4 templates inside our tab bar template. So let's add some actions to when we tap on the grid items or the list items, and I'll also add some action buttons at the end of the info template. Alright, so we want to display an alert every time we tap on one of those items, and then you can easily hook up your own logic there that you want to do when a user taps on one of your buttons. So let's just create a private method to build our alert first. So we're just going to say private CP alert template, and just call this one build alert template. All right, and then we're just going to return a new CP alert template, and let's have a look what we have available. So again, title variants for our alert, and then we can have multiple action buttons on an alert. So for the title, I'm going to pass through a parameter. So let's add a string message here. So then we can pass that through as our title variant. I'm just gonna do this. And then the CP alert action is also going to be a new array, and we're gonna add a new CP alert action. All right, let's see what we need to specify here. We need a title, so I'm just gonna call this button dismiss. We're just gonna dismiss the alert, and then we can specify a CP alert action style. So if you look at the autocomplete options, we have a default, a cancel, and a destructive. So I'm just going to use the default one here. And then lastly, we need to specify an action. So you have to provide an action parameter, and you can use a lambda expression. And then we can just say, we can use our interface controller to dismiss this template again. And do we want this to be animated? So it's just like a fancy pop up and pop down. Yes, I do want that. And then we're just missing a semicolon. There we go. So we have a method that's building an alert. It's going to pop up with our message and have a button that says dismiss. And once you click on it, it's going to dismiss this alert. So let's add this to our grid template first. So on the action here, we want to use interface controller dot present template. So just something about presenting and pushing templates. You'll see there's 2 available options here. Pushing templates, you can basically push any of the existing templates and it will display as a new page on top of whatever you're viewing. And presenting template is seen more as like showing a modal on top of your current screen. One thing to note, you can only present one template at a time. So if you're trying to display more than one template at a time, it will crash your app. So maybe just build in some logic in there to always dismiss any existing templates before presenting new ones. And then also remember your stack depth. You only have a stack depth of like 3 or 4. So your tab or template is already taking up stack depth, and then the template you're showing on that. So you can only push one more template on top of your current stack, and then if you try and push another one, you'll get an exception. But fortunately, the exceptions are quite extensive, so you should know why it's crashing. So we want to present our template, so we're just going to call our method build alert template, and we can display a message here. So we just say grid item was tapped, and we want this to be animated, yes. And then finally we're missing a semicolon, and there we go. So let's add it to our list template as well. We don't have a handler in our constructor, but for the list button, you can say list button dot handler. This should equal item and block is the two parameters we're given. This is from the Apple documentation that I got somewhere, and we're going to call this. So you have to invoke your block. So basically with the list items, you have some special things that you can call async data, and it shows that loading spinner while it's loading the data, and then you can finish your block once that's done. This is just something to take into consideration there. And then we just want to call interface controller again, dot present template, and use our method again, build alert template, and show our message. Section 1 list item was tapped. We want this to be animated, yes. Great, and we can just add this to the second section as well. See, this is still plural. Let's just fix that. And this is just going to be section 2 list item was tapped. Alright, and then we can just add our text buttons with the same handlers to our info template. So let's just say var text buttons equals new CP text button array. And then we can create them in here, CP text button, and this is expecting a title. So the first one is going to be accept. Gonna have an accept and a cancel button, so we can provide a text style. Gonna make this one confirm, and then a handler. So again, let's just say action as the parameter, and that calls a lambda function with our interface controller dot present template, and we're gonna use our build alert template method, and inside of that we're going to specify our message. Say accept was tapped. Then we just want this to be animated. So true. Go. And then we can just copy this guy for our cancel button. Text is gonna be cancel, and the style is gonna be cancel. And then we can just say cancel was tapped. And then we can just add these text buttons to our CP information template. And there we have it. Let's run this. Oh wait, there's a semicolon missing. Great. Let's run this and see what it looks like. Alright, let's have a look. Launch our CarPlay app. Tap a grid item. It says grid item was tapped. When you press the dismiss, it goes away. Go to the list template. Tap on one of the first section's items. It says section 1 list item was tapped. Can dismiss that guy. Go down here, tap a second section list item, and the correct alert is displayed. Dismiss that alert. We didn't change anything on the point of interest template, so that all of this is still the same. And then on the info template, we can see this is a little bit more squashed because we added our 2 buttons in here. So if we tap the accept, it says accept was tapped, and the cancel was tapped. So there we go. Well done, guys. Congrats for coming this far, and thank you for watching all the way through. And yeah, I would love to see what you guys are building with CarPlay and Android Auto on Maui. So please drop a comment and let me know what apps you are building. So maybe we can have a demo session where I just show a bunch of videos of you guys' apps if you're keen on that. And yeah, I hope you found this tutorial helpful. All the code will be on a GitHub repo called Maui for Cars, which will be in the link description below. So yeah, please let me know if you have any issues as well. Add it into the comments. And if you did find this helpful, feel free to leave a like or a subscribe. I've heard it helps the algorithm. Until next time, there are many more tutorials coming, and I'm excited to see you guys all here next time.